When I was younger, I remember playing through Pokemon Red and Yellow a bunch of times, just catching all the Pokemon, trying out different combinations, doing things with Missing Note that I shouldn't and ruining everything. And I didn't think that things could get much better than that amazing experience. How does Game Freak top it? They don't. Except they did, because Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal are my favorite games in the entire series. Because somehow they managed to make everything better without taking away anything that I loved, which is ideal for a sequel. They added a ton of really cool new Pokemon like Espeon and Sneasel, and Espeon again, a day-night cycle, a crappy phone, so that fucking schoolboy Alan, or what's-his-face, can call you up and say, well, my Tangela is super awesome, and also I almost caught a Fearow or a fucking whatever the fuck, but I didn't. Okay, bye! Which isn't even a complete fucking thought, by the way. They greatly improved the visuals and composed what is without a doubt my favorite soundtrack in the entiredom of Pokemon. But most important of all, on top of all the new region goodness you could explore, they also let you go back through Kanto 2. The whole game was just so amazing, and that's when I realized that it's a whole new world we live in. It's a whole new place to see. It's a whole new place with some form of attitude, and they were still telling me to go catch them all, so I'm going to make this Gaming Mysteries. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Today on Gaming Mysteries, I'll be talking about both the development and the beta of Pokemon Gold and Silver. Now, Pokemon Gold and Silver, or as it was known then, Pocket Monsters 2, was first revealed during 1997 and was slated for release that same year. The game was shown off in this primitive form of technology that we called a magazine. In this so-called magazine, we were given our first look at the next generation of Pokemon, and what a generation it promised to be. Of course, there was some new info regarding certain features of the next games, like adding a real-time clock, new moves, giving the player a skateboard because it's the 90s, and bikes are for squares, and Tony Hawk is super cool because he did 900, and promising that the player could visit, quote, unusual places, so confirmed a free trip to Miyamoto's basement was going to be included with the game, but was later removed for safety precautions. What was seen as something more interesting, though, were the new Pokemon being shown off. Oh, and these two dudes, I guess, who actually hold significance. Well, one of them anyways. This dude, not so much. He's speculated to be a gym leader, though he's most likely not important at all. This lady, on the other hand, is a different story, as her role was much more significant, as she may have been the first playable female trainer in the series. As I'm sure you all know, in Pokemon Crystal, they introduced a new female trainer class, named Chris. Chris wasn't the name of the class, by the way. That's the name of the... I got confused, sorry. Anyways, it seems that she was originally to be added in the Gold and Silver versions of the game. A female trainer was initially being shown off in various pre-release material for Gold and Silver, said material bearing a striking resemblance to some early Pokemon Crystal material that also showed a female trainer. Unfortunately, the only screenshots of this early female trainer are blurry as hell, although the internet cleaned some of it up a bit, so go you! And you can see that she certainly looks very different, as her hair is far less peppy. But I find it fascinating that they had plans to introduce a female trainer from the get-go. A shame it didn't come to fruition until Crystal, but either way, it's neat. Trainers aside, the real stars of this show are the new Pokemon, and on the same page as the trainer-type people, we get a look at 3, an early version of Tyranitar who looks very similar to his final counterpart, and these two guys. First, we have this odd turtle who's thought to be a Dark-type because he's hanging out with Captain Goth over here, and potentially he's an early version of Shuckle or Torkoal. And on a more terrifying note, we have this fucking thing that I know is probably just a really weird early version of Hitmontop, but it could easily also be my worst fucking nightmare. Someone tried to turn Clefairy into a fighting-type Pokemon, a spinning one no less. You crazy bastards at Nintendo. Or Game Freak, I should say, you crazy bastards at Game Freak. Aside from that, we get a look at early sprites for Donphan, Ampharos, Slowking, and Ho-Oh, as well as our first look at the new rival, and this prototype ladybug that has murder in its eyes. But let's stay focused for a second. Now, sure, the early sprites for these Pokemon are interesting to look at, but I'm infinitely more interested as to why Silver looks like a pretty girl. And not that douche who will just kick you out of the way for talking to him while he stares in front of a laboratory weirdly. Some suggest that he may have had a different origin story, so that maybe he wouldn't be a complete dickhead, but I'm not so easily fooled. We were also given a lot of screenshots depicting a different looking and yet somehow familiar game. From a design standpoint, sure, the areas look very different. Prototype versions of Ecruteak City, a cooler looking possible prototype Ruins of Alph, this early version of Goldenrod Tower, and even a different looking starting town, said town being named Silent Hills. Some standout differences seen in these screenshots, besides the different starting town, is this prototype version of the Ruins of Alph, or what is thought to be that, which seems to feature what looks like a waterfall, but what is probably just steps because there's no water in the ground. Of course, it could also be nothing, and not knowing is kind of annoying. But speaking of using the word annoying to segue into something else, whirlpools are annoying, because then you have to have a Pokemon that knows Whirlpool, and I don't want any of them to know Whirlpool, and I hate that, and I hate them. And apparently, in the early versions of Gold and Silver, whirlpools were meant to be randomly interspersed across various sea routes to serve as obstacles, which sounds terrible. Thank you for not doing that. Another interesting thing to note is that the character sprites and building designs, while a step up from the first gen by introducing things like chimneys, they were still at this point in development very simplified, making everything overall just look a lot more like the original games. This is understandable as the game wasn't that far into development. But as much fun as pictures are, seeing a game in action is where the real fun is. Or playing it, whatever. Luckily though, people wouldn't have to wait long to get their chance to play it. Not at home at an event, but even so. As in that same year at Space World 1997, people actually got to play an early version of Gold and Silver, and believe it or not, footage of it exists. Like 15 seconds of footage, and it looks super washed out and blurry, so you can't really tell what's going on. In fact, the only thing I can make out is that they're still using the sprites from the first gen, or the simplified sprites I should say, for at least out of battle anyways, and they hadn't implemented gender at this point. But even so, it's early footage, and I'll take that. You go, internet. To get the full experience of the demo though, well, you'll need to have played it, but since that's probably impossible at this point, we have sites like Lost Levels, which give you a chance to experience some of it through text, and I'll go ahead and link this in the description, as I won't be going over every single little detail of the demo, because I want to focus on the important things, and not everything here is important, so there you go. Now, the demo apparently opened in a similar fashion as the final game, but with a different title screen. Upon starting, you'd just be given a random prototype starter Pokemon, and more prototype Pokemon means some more art, and I may as well take the time now to go over some of the earlier Pokemon designs. For starters, which I'll go ahead and apologize for the unintentional pun, as I'm a big fan of James Chen. But the starters the game would give you would be either a Kurisu, who is a water type, a Honoguma, a fire type, and Happa, who is a prototype Chikorita type Pokemon. Out of the three starters that were shown, only one would make its way into the final product, and that would be Happa. Granted, they changed its design quite a bit, which I'm fine with considering the original design looks a tad really fucking creepy. Some other early designs of Pokemon were Buku, who was believed to be an early design of Quillfish, and I believe that too. Kirin Riki, or Girafarig, has an early design that's somewhat similar to its final version, but just not similar enough to be extra weird. So instead of having the monster tail head thing on the back, I hope everyone is really enjoying this technical lingo I have, by the way. But instead of that, it just has two of the same head on both sides of the body. And here's this early version of Meryl. Fun fact about Meryl is that it, along with what we now know as Honoguma, used to be thought as two new evolutions for Pikachu, being named Pikablu and Pikaflare. This was before everyone outside of Japan knew better, so it was a pretty stupid myth, and I believed it, and I talked about it in the Pokegods Gaming Mysteries. The 90s were full of liars. Anyways, more about the demo. In terms of what you could do in the demo, well, you could wander around the surrounding areas, including the early starting town, Silent Hills, and encounter both some old Pokemon and some new ones. The old Pokemon to show up were Pidgey, Rattata, Pikachu, Caterpie, Metapod, Paris, Venonat, Clefairy, and Meowth. And the newcomers were Meryl, Girafarig, Hoppip, Ladybug, and Slowking was the last newcomer to show up. Aside from Pokemon, you could also battle some trainers as well as encounter your pretty girl rival, but beyond that, the demo was pretty limited. You couldn't even go inside the lab or Pokemon Center. Really, the demo seems like more of a tease than anything else, which I guess is a demo's job, but I like that even in this stage they wanted to keep certain things under wraps, but in a way that just teased everybody. For example, if you got any Pokedex info for the new Pokemon, the game didn't have descriptions for them. It just said newly discovered Pokemon under investigation. And if you investigate the radio in your room, it'll say, Oak disappeared from Kanto. There is a view of moving location for a new Pokemon, and this event might be the cause. The safety is a concern. And that sounds really dumb because it's probably a direct translation, but you can pick up the gist of what it's saying, and it's letting the player get a little taste of what's to come from these new titles. Boy, can't wait to play them when they're released in 1997, the player says to themselves under the assumption that these games were still going to come out in 1997. Boy, were they wrong. However, 1997 came and went, and the new Pokemon games were never released. Game Freak stayed quiet on the matter until March of 1998, where they officially announced that the games were going to be delayed. At the same time, they decided to re-announce the games as Pocket Monsters Gold and Silver, dropping the 2 from the title. Though, other than this announcement, 1998 remained a quiet year for Gold and Silver, though during this time frame, the world would still get some hints about the next generation of Pokemon through the anime, which I assume that the anime was meant to help market the game in Japan too, because as for those of you who watch the anime, they showed off a ton of new Pokemon over the course of just the series and also in the movies. So at least to me, it seems like an obvious marketing ploy to market these new Pokemon, but the delay on all this stuff must have fucked that up a bit. I mean, the anime started in Japan in 1997, the initial intended release year for Gold and Silver, and they showed off Ho-Oh, one of the most important Pokemon from Gold and Silver, in the first episode of the anime, a move that makes sense if you're going to put out a new game that same year, 1997, not 1999. That's why I figured it probably screwed up their promotion a bit, but that's just speculation on my part. In any case, after a year of silence, Nintendo was bustling with new information regarding Pokemon Gold and Silver. A new release date slated for 1999 was set, and a promise that the game would be compatible with the Game Boy Color. We were also given some updated artwork for Pokemon. Here's an updated Slowking and Marill, and we also see 2 new Pokemon that were being shown off, Blossom and Hoot Hoot. Game Freak also finally let everyone see the new battle screen for the first time, and while its design is very similar to the final version, an interesting absentee is gender, an at the time unannounced feature. The move stats screen at this stage of development is still incomplete and doesn't show things like the remaining PP for each move or its type. But other than that, we didn't get a lot of info moving forward, until the game finally saw release after its long delay. And it was fantastic. Though the information doesn't stop there, as the internet has a nice habit of poking its nose into the inner workings of games, thus discovering their innards. So thank you, internet, again. I can never thank you enough, apparently. You're like a surgeon. Or some weirdo. Now, there were little doodads that were discovered, like how you could originally name your mom, or how the bird type still remained as internal data within the game. There's an unused item called Sylph Scope 2, which was thought to be used instead of the squirt bottle on the Sudowoodo due to a line of text that says, I hear there's a Pokemon that looks just like a tree. You can reveal its identity using this Sylph Scope 2. And maybe they just decided that a squirt bottle made more sense for some reason, but obviously the only way to truly remove a Sudowoodo is to call Brock, because he's a weird motherfucker. Some Gen 1 items also remain in Gold and Silver, such as the Poke Flute, which will still function, and the town map, which will not function at all as that version of the world was destroyed, but hey, it's okay, because we found a new version of it to the left of us, so everything's gonna be okay. There are also some unused events. One event involves sweet honey. Another involves a terrible mother who lost her child to bad parenting. And there is a lot of unused text, which I've decided that I'm just going to read it all to you because it won't take that long and I can point things out when necessary, but I mostly just want to read these one after another so that it makes no sense at all. So here we go. That can't be used right now. That item can't be put in the pack. The blank was put in the pack. Remaining time. Your Pokemon's HP was healed. Warping. ... Which number should be changed? Will you play with blank? Will you? You need 2 Pokemon for breeding. Breeding is not possible. The compatibility is blank. Should they breed? There is no egg. It's going to hatch. Test event. Well, that broke the mood. Now the egg will never hatch. Anywho, what do you want to play with? You can have this. The box is full. This is forming a really fucked up scenario, Christ. Obtained the Voltor badge, which the Voltor badge is considered to be an inside joke and nothing more than that. So funny stuff. Moving on, the password is this okay? Enter the ID, no. Yeah, I know it's numbered, by the way. Enter the amount. The Windows save area was exceeded. What? Corrupted event. That doesn't sound good. And speaking of events, this is the one about the bad mothers, so let's observe. Oh no, my daughter is missing. No, she couldn't have gone to the, and in caps, burned tower. So I imagine this lady just yelled that shit, but I told her not to go near it. People seem to disappear there. Oh, what should I do? Oh, I don't know. Be a fucking parent? Use one of these mystical creatures called Pokemon to go save her? I've heard they're all the rage with 10-year-old kids who will have no future because they dropped out of school to enslave innocent creatures and fight their eternal rival dicks. Oh, but more events. BG event, coordinate event, no windows available for popping. God, what a terrible world they live in. Question mark, 5 times. Object event, and then some unused text from the first games. Bird, it dodged the thrown ball. This Pokemon can't be caught. You missed the Pokemon. Played the Poke Flute. Now that's a catchy tune. All sleeping Pokemon woke up. Player played the Poke Flute. Play that Poke Flute, you player you. What makes up the majority of left out content is this fuck ton of unused maps. There are a ton of early beta maps for areas in both Johto and Kanto. The Johto maps show towns that do certainly have a different layout to them, though the basic look is there. Mostly. A lot of the differences with some of the maps are just that things are rearranged, like how Sprout Tower is in the middle of this prototype Violet City. But there are some far more interesting bits of left out goodness in certain areas. For example, New Barktown had a Pokemon Center, for some reason. In Olivine City, someone decided to both rearrange the town in a what I feel is a more appealing way, or manner, or something, but more importantly, they also changed the wallpaper of the lighthouse so that it looks like a giant bush, for the sake of camouflage, I assume. So that way it blends in like a tree. For Christ's sake, someone call Brock! There are maps of the Pokemon Lab on Cinnabar Island, which indicates that the full island was to make an appearance at one point during the game's development. And there's also a map of an unused house in Olivine City, where a woman referred to a pharmacy in Ecruteak City instead of Cinnawood City, suggesting that the pharmacy was originally to appear in Ecruteak City. But there are 2 unused maps that stand above the rest in terms of being interesting. One is this prototype version of the Lake of Rage, which seems to be designed more like a normal, if not giant, town, by having a Pokemon Center and a Pokemart and a fucking gym, and maybe the gym leader would be like Lance or a guy dressed up as a Magikarp. One can only assume / dream, but the real interest lies within the Safari Zone. Now, as a lot of you may know, the Safari Zone was originally to make an appearance in Gold and Silver for when the trainer went over to Kanto for some hot Kanto action, though for whatever reason it was cut and replaced with the bug catching contest. My assumption as to why it was cut is just that the Safari Zone was already a pretty big area, and if you look at Kanto as a whole in Gold and Silver, a lot of the areas are scaled down to the point where they probably just didn't have enough room on the cartridge to pull it off, or time / budget constraints. It's kind of hard to say because I don't work for Game Freak, but yeah, that's my speculation. Even though we missed out on some Safari goodness, you can still access the area by cheating, and as you can see, it's most likely a prototype version, or Nintendo let someone work on the game while drunk again because they accidentally blocked off the entrance with these 2 fucking fountains and odd placements of water, which is just shitty design. You can't encounter any wild Pokemon in the grass here, though you can get some by fishing. Oh, and I guess it's worth mentioning that there's no normal way to leave the area, and if you save in here, you're going to have to live there forever. So don't do that. But that was the beta and development of Pokemon Gold and Silver. After looking at the old screenshots and footage, and having just done a full playthrough of Pokemon Silver for the millionth time now, I can say that I'm satisfied with the changes that they made to the game, and I think it's for the best that it was delayed so that they could take time to refine the game into the ball of perfect that it currently is. And while at the same time I'm still interested in playing the what if version of Pokemon Gold and Silver because I'm human and I want what I can't have, and I'd love to see what other Pokemon and events and areas they had up their sleeves, maybe other girly looking femmy boy rivals. But ultimately, that's a version of the game I can live without, as I can say without a doubt that we got the best Gold and Silver that we could have hoped to get, minus missing out on the Safari Zone, I guess. This has been Gaming Mysteries. Thanks for watching. Yo homies, welcome back to End Slate. Today is a very special episode of End Slate because this is the 8:12 a.m. I didn't sleep all night and instead got over writer's block and finished a fucking script edition of End Slate. So Yuriofwind is a little cranky and sleepy, and I'm gonna go to sleep after this actually. But hey, welcome back to End Slate. It feels like it's been a while. It's about 2 weeks. Things got delayed. Was involved in another video that I'm not gonna talk about, but you'll see it eventually. Pretty soon, actually. It's some Halloween thing. I can't talk about it. Or I imagine I can't talk about it. It's not really the thing. The point is, you just watch the Gaming Mysteries on the beta and development of Pokemon Gold and Silver, and I hope you enjoyed the video. You know, if you did and you'd like to like it, I would actually appreciate that. I know I don't normally ask for that kind of stuff, but I would appreciate that. I've been meaning to talk about the topic for some time now because I talked about the beta of the original games last year in February. So it was just a matter of time before I talked about Gold and Silver. So it was nice to finally get a chance to talk about that. And I know some people are probably wondering why this is not a Halloween themed video. To put it simply, the Halloween thing kind of got fucked up because some shit went down. I don't really want to explain it. It involves the Creepypasta wiki, and I explained it on Facebook if you want to go look at that. It's not really important though. Point is, this was a Gaming Mysteries, and I hope you enjoyed it. But let's look at the top of the screen because there's some other shit going on here. Now there's 2 videos, and also I've read that the click-through rate on annotations is incredibly low. But I'm just gonna keep rambling anyways because I don't care. So here are these 2 videos I'd like you guys to check out if you want. One is a Gaming Mysteries on the beta of Pokemon Red and Green, the one that started it all. The one from last year, Gaming Mysteries on. It was originally called Capsule Monsters. Fun fact. Learn that and more in that video. Hey, but there's also another video. It's the Gaming Mysteries on the Poke Gods, which has actually, oddly enough, become one of my more favorite videos for some stupid reason. I really like it. I like the subject. And I don't know, I like rambling about Pokemon when given the opportunity to do so. So, if you want to check those 2 videos out, if you're on a Pokemon binge like everyone else in the world because the new games came out and everyone's gone crazy, then feel free to do so. And, oh, bottom of the screen, hi. You know, if you like, well, I already did the like thing, though, you know, if you like the video and you would like to like it, of course, that's appreciated. If you would like to see more videos, because I make videos, and I'm gonna be making more. I can say that with certainty because I make videos. You're free to stick around if you want, subscribe or whatever. You know, if you don't want to, you don't have to. But you know, I'm just saying. You know, I got muffins. I'm just saying, enticing. I know. You know, I'm just throwing it out there. But yeah, this has been End Slate. I feel like sleepy End Slates aren't the best End Slate, but what are you gonna do? Next time on End Slate, I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen, but I'm gonna go to bed. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Bye, guys.